People who have been cheated on. How did you find out? Had a very similar experience, although he wasn't her fiancé, just her long-term boyfriend, who got shot at a party and died at the hospital. I wasn't with her when she found out either. She called me crying because her friend got shot, and when I immediately told her I was on my way to take her to see him, to be with her friend group, I wasn't even going to stick around, just give her a ride cause she couldn't drive, and then she just cried harder and confessed that I was the dude on the side. I really loved her too. We also never talked again. Ouch. The girl I was dating went complete radio silent for 4 days after complaining of headaches. Turned out she had a stroke at work and was in the hospital. I thought she was completely out or something, which was why I wasn't informed. Turns out I wasn't the boyfriend her parents knew of, so she didn't tell me until she got out of the hospital and was finally alone. One of my friends once asked me to lie to his GF about him staying at my place while he was with some other girl. I, having been cheated on, was like, don't make a party to your fucked up shit. So later when his GF called and asked if he was there, I was like, no. He asked me to say he was, but he's not. Well, we haven't spoken since 2016, but I'm fine with that. I had suspicions about my wife for a while, but confirmation came in the form of a voicemail from the guy's wife. Hi, this message is for Dot. It's calling. Just wanted to let you know that your wife has been having an affair with my husband. So, I just thought you should know. If you have any questions, I'm sure your wife would love to tell you all about it. Bye. Ooh, this is similar to mine. I had suspicions for a long time that my ex-husband was cheating, and the red flags looking back are clear as day. But at the time it always got twisted around that I was just a paranoid crazy person. Then at work one night, my phone rings, and I didn't answer because I didn't recognize the number. Immediately after, my husband calls and sounds super freaked out and says, "You're about to get a phone call. Don't answer it, it's all lies." WTF, what are you talking about? Melissa's boyfriend is drunk and thinks we've been sleeping together, and he's going scorched earth trying to ruin us because he made this up in his head. So I call the number that just called me. He is not drunk and found the texts and pictures on her phone and offered to send me the screenshots. I didn't want to see, but I believed him, thanked him, called my husband back and told him he better not be at home when I get home in the morning. Similar thing happened to my uncle. The girl lived on a houseboat, and one day my uncle was out doing a mountain bike race but came off his bike and injured himself, so he had to quit the race. So he comes back to the houseboat caked in mud and blood, already annoyed, and walks into the boat to find her shagging another man. Props to my uncle though, he told us he was so angry he didn't know what to do, and the first thing he saw was her keys to the boat, so he walked out and threw the keys in the canal and then buggered off and never saw her again. This happened to my husband. They were high school sweethearts, and both in college together. He worked 2 part-time jobs while taking a full course load so he could pay their rent and groceries, because she was just too mentally exhausted to work at all or take more than 1 class per term. When she took up a hobby soccer league, he was super supportive, since it meant she was out there doing things, and it seemed good for her mental health and mood. But he could never attend her games because he was always at work or in class. One day he made a mistake at work and got fired halfway through his shift. He came home to find her and the coach of her soccer team together in her bed. He let them get dressed and then told her to pack a bag and leave with the dude. Then called her parents, who came that night and packed the rest of her stuff with his help. Funny enough, the parents were completely understanding of him and pissed at her for what she did. Apparently they had been giving her rent and food money every month and he had no idea she wasn't using it to pay bills and making him pay it all instead. They were livid about that. They paid him what they calculated to be all of the money he had spent paying her way during the relationship, and wouldn't let him refuse it. So I'm here, except I found out long after our relationship was over. She messaged me asking for timeliness stuff since she was sick of being lied to, and it turns out not only had he cheated on her with me, He ended up cheating on me with her. And also several other people. He made me feel insane while we were together to the point I had to go to therapy and then had the audacity to break up with me. I was abusive. I wasn't abusive and I knew that, but I believed him until 3 years after our relationship when his new, old partner messaged me. Not me but my parents. Dad found out from a dirty text that his best friend of 30+ years sent to my mom. Mom was mentally abusive and convinced him not to tell me. I was in college and didn't live at home at the time. I found out a month later when wife of said best friend messaged me on Facebook and asked how I was doing with all of this. Mom left and hasn't talked to me in 6+ years. Dad got remarried. He just had his first anniversary. New wife adopted me and I have a good mom for the first time in my life. The guy she was cheating on me with told me, to be fair to him, he didn't even know we were dating at the time, but we had mutual friends that knew we were dating, and so he figured it out. Anyway, it sucked pretty bad, but he was cool about it and also felt bad. He and I actually ended up hanging out for a while and she basically got totally ostracized from our friend group, so I feel like I came out on top. She didn't logged off her Facebook profile on my computer and as we shared lots of common friends it took me a minute to realize I was not on my session. I received a weird messenger message of a girl asking me how was it last night, did you stay with him after I left, did he finally see your underwear? I was highly confused. Then it all made sense. I went for a run, waited for her to wake up, and we broke up without even mentioning it. 3 years after and she still doesn't know that I know. We were both miserable anyway. I wasn't even pissed, just shocked by the brutal end of this relationship. We broke up, I made a new friend and she asked if I had a boyfriend and I told her we had just ended the relationship, but I also told her his name to which she replied I had a boyfriend with that name too not too long ago. It wasn't a common name in our area. So I laughed and I showed her a picture and she did the same and we stopped laughing. It was the same guy. We both dated him for like 4 months and 2 of those at the same time. Funny thing, it was this day 4 years ago that I found out my wife was having an affair with her boss. I knew something was wrong. The way she acted around me was off. I had asked her point blank if she was having an affair with X. She denied it and suggested we go to marriage counseling. I took this as I was doing something wrong and went in hoping to find the issue that could save my marriage. She lied again in the counseling. This went on for about a month and a half. I had Thursdays off of work, so I got up and worked out, did a little bit of cleaning and sat down. That moment my brain went wild with the possibility of her having an affair. So I logged into her Facebook and found the messages between her and X. I called her crying asking why. She gave me a cold I don't know to tell you and hung up. I left the house and went to the bank to get my half of the money. On the way I called an old boss and had a better job in a different city by the end of the day. I am a pretty simple person. I don't ask for much besides trust and truth in a relationship. That was broken now and I was out. I ended up remarrying a wood woman with 2 kids and couldn't be happier. I'd been seeing this girl for 8 months, and flowers arrived from a guy called Mate on her birthday, but she managed to convince me he was just a friend. It wasn't a problem as I was finally meeting her family for the first time at her birthday meal that same day, and she dropped the L-bomb a few days before. I stayed at hers after the meal, then left for work in the morning. Later that day I sent her the usual text of when you free next. And then she decided to inform me that Matt was actually her boyfriend of 5 years, and she was moving 300 miles to the house that he had bought for them both, and I would never get to see her again. Safe to say it left me with just a few trust issues. Yo, okay, I thought this was just me and that's why I've never told anyone all this story. It was so embarrassing. She wasn't my best friend, but we were still pretty close. Then my boyfriend at the time just wrapped an arm around her and started kissing her while I just sat awkwardly next to them. I was so stunned I almost brushed it off before it hit me that oh my god, my boyfriend is kissing another girl. I literally had to walk away to process it. And TBH, I don't think they even noticed because it took a bit of time for them to even talk to me about it. My friend walked up to me and I confronted her, asking why TF she would do that with my boyfriend, and she called me a bitch for using the boyfriend card. It's one of the stupidest excuses I have ever heard, and the worst part is that I did feel like a bitch since everyone seemed so calm about it. Turns out that she'd been his side chick as soon as we started dating. Even some of my friends knew, but for some reason they just assumed I was fine with it. Apparently being bisexual means you can't have your boundaries violated. Woo, sorry to unload all this here, but it's incredibly validating to know that I'm not the only one who's experienced something this ridiculous. And it's crazy how shameless they were about it too. I always felt like no one would believe me if I told them, because it just felt so straightforward. I am really sorry you had to go through that. I hope you're doing better now. I had a similar experience, was dating a coworker for barely a month. Things were still very new, but he was full of "I think I'm falling in love with you" stuff, while I was very cautiously saying we need to take this slow. A group from work went out after a shift, and I noticed that he was super touchy-feely with Kay, whispering in her ear, pushing her hair back to do so. I thought that was weird and pretty inappropriate, but I was new to dating, so maybe it was just me being insecure. I tried to break up with him a few days after that, pointing out that he clearly wasn't into this relationship anymore. He insisted it was just a busy week and he really wanted to be with me. 2 days later, I walk into the break room, where he and Kay are making out. They pry their faces apart, and this dude chirps, like it was no biggie, "Hey, rain us and fire, Kay and I are going to go out to dinner. Do you want to join us?" I was too stunned to do anything but just turn around and walk back out. Later, when I confronted him, he vacillated between the "but we were never officially going together" semantics and trying to gaslight me into believing he'd actually broken up with me sometime before. Is there really something in their brains that convinces them that this kind of behavior is okay? Like, when I said I don't think we should see each other anymore, why didn't he just say okay? She had been acting a bit strange and felt like more of a roommate than significant other. I had seen her get some message and try to keep it hidden. At work the next week I guessed her password and found blatant message exchanges with her ex plus other men. I immediately started looking for a new place to live and was getting all my things in order when my boss let me go. I waited a few weeks to break up with her while I figured my life out. I was at peace though because I knew she was a horrible person and I also no longer had to deal with my asshole boss. Edit, since this is getting attention, if you have this miserable experience, just know that the best revenge is to live a full and happy life with absolutely no contact. Drop them out of your life. Go find some new hobbies and decide the sort of person you want to be. Developing who you are will eventually lead to understanding when you truly connect with someone. I had suspicions prior to me actually finding out, but it's a fun story. I worked the overnight shift at a printing store. My then girlfriend was sleeping soundly at our apartment, or so I thought. At around 3 a.m., she walked in wearing an oversized hoodie and leopard print high heels. I'm a bit puzzled. She looks she's been crying. I ask her what's going on. She says she wrecked her car and needs my keys so she can go home and sleep. I give her the keys and she leaves. I get home at around 8 a.m. She's sleeping. Her purse is on the table. Her phone is there. I reach for her phone. The purse falls sideways out, spills condoms. I unlock her phone and go to her messages. There is a long text conversation between her and another man. She had been cheating for a while. I had been in a long-term but long-distance relationship with a girl and I truly adored her. We saw each other as often as we could and always made the most of our time together. She traveled with her mom to visit her grandmother and staying at her grandmother's house was her male cousin who she hadn't seen since they were children. Next time she came to visit me she planned on taking a detour on her way home to stay with her grandmother and cousin for a few days. She spoke about her cousin a lot and I was genuinely pleased that she had reconnected with him. She was shy and didn't make friends easily. It had been her birthday and I'd bought her lots of nice gifts including a camera which she'd wanted for a long time. I walked her to the train station and kissed her goodbye and wished her a lovely stay with her grandmother. A couple of days passed her and I didn't hear anything from her, which was unusual. I called her mobile phone a few times and sent her text messages just asking if she was okay and got no reply. On the fourth day I called her mom, who I got on with exceptionally well, to ask her if she'd heard from her daughter. She had, and couldn't understand why she hadn't called me, so she gave me the home phone number of the grandmother. I called and her grandmother answered. I didn't give my name but asked to speak with my girlfriend, who came straight to the phone, obviously unaware that I'd been given the number. When she heard my voice, she went very quiet. I eventually got her to admit that she had feelings for someone, but I naively explained that the only person she'd been spending time with was her cousin. Then the penny dropped and I realized it was him. She eventually admitted that she had been physical with him. My wife cheated and had a 2-year-long affair. I found out when the other man's wife texted me and told me everything. I confronted my wife and she lied through her teeth until I hit her with some facts of the matter that she couldn't deny. We were HS sweethearts that were together for 18 years and married 11 with 2 young kids, 3 and 5. The absolute worst moment of my life, and I've been in a deep depression since finding out. His sister, whom I had never met, called me up to tell me that, while he was across the country visiting them, his ex-wife had driven up there and they were back together. He promised me that wasn't the case, but the sister stealing my number from his phone and calling me sent up red flags, so I broke it off. He called me a few months later and tried to restart our romance. His sister again called to let me know he had remarried said ex-wife. He got really persistent about being into a relationship even though he knew I knew he was married. I don't know why the sister did it, but bless her. My best friend accidentally let it slip in a FB message, because she thought I already knew. I had had my suspicions but never any proof. When I confronted my wife, she tried to say the guy raped her. He didn't, and I lost my shit because that is not something you fucking lie about. When I didn't buy that lie, she just kept producing more until finally she confessed. I stayed with her for another 7 years. But our relationship never recovered after that because she's a raging narcissist who can't handle making mistakes. I left her in March of 2017. Within 2 months she was shacked up with someone else and raising their kid. She hates children. Also bought herself 2 new dogs to replace the dogs we had together. Fucking sucked to just realize she never gave a shit about me or our family and doesn't want to be alone. Just found a replacement family like ASAP. I'm still single and frankly I prefer it this way, even though it still hurts. Edit. Fuck you, Courtney. The dogs and I are doing just fine. I was living abroad, so we were doing long distance. He visited me, then less than a month after he went back home, an old co-worker friend told me she saw him at a bar kissing and holding hands with another girl. She confronted them and he was saying that's his best friend who is also in a relationship. That other girl ended up being my brother-in-law's friend's girlfriend. It was so messy. Edit. I'm just gonna add that I paid for his plane ticket to come see me as well as lending him a bunch of spending money. He didn't pay me back for a long ass time, and overall I probably only got half of it back. I know that's my own stupidity too, but it just made the situation so much shittier. My wife told me she was driving to Pittsburgh from our home in Virginia to see an old mutual friend of ours. I knew she had a friend that I was suspicious about that lived a bit further north in New York, but it wasn't until I got a call from my bank asking to confirm the charges that I realized she not only went straight to New York, none of the charges on the card were for a hotel. Edit. To add a backstory, she started as the operations manager for a big box store, and this kid was one of her employees. They began to secretly flirt with each other behind my back. I knew of this guy, but didn't know what they were up to, thinking she just had to work late. A few months later, he gets accepted to a college in Syracuse, and Wine had to move into his dorm. Again, I knew about this because she at least told me that in passing when I asked about her day at work, something about being proud of one of her employees. She became reclusive, spending most of her time texting someone and guarding her phone. I should have known better, but I was young and convinced she would never do anything to hurt me. A few months later she plans a trip to see a mutual friend of ours, but didn't invite me, which was strange seeing as it was a family friend. I got a call from the bank to verify charges, and that's when I discovered that she'd been in Syracuse the whole time and never rented a hotel. That's when I found out for sure. Oh man, I have a bunch of these. My new at the time girlfriend's friend straight up just told me my girl didn't actually leave her old boyfriend, she was still with him. I was having dinner with an ex and she was telling me about her new boyfriend and that they started dating in January. She forgot we were still together in January. It was years later. I didn't really care. I had an ex drop her purse and condoms fell out. We didn't use condoms. She told me she was sleeping with others. Another ex right before going to bed grabbed her phone, texted someone, then started deleting texts. I just asked her and she said yeah. One of my exes dumped his GF for me and kicked her out of his house, but he lied to me saying she was just a roommate and friend who had already planned to move out. I found out they were GF later. I was at his house where she used to live with him, and helped him with the down payment. Someone knocked on the door and I bet his face was the same as your ex's. He looked so scared. Lol. He seriously told me to go hide and I just laughed at him and said no, I'm not doing that. I just stood there with my arms crossed waiting for him to open the door. Lucky for him it was a salesperson. I definitely had some questions for him after that. That poor woman ran into one of his friends at a restaurant and asked how he was. The friend told her he had a new GF and she was justifiably livid. She emailed him all angry and I saw the email on the shared tablet we had. I would not have ever dated him if I had known the truth, and once I found out it all unraveled. Lol. Can't trust someone like that. That asshole stole my MacBook and hid it thinking that would keep me from leaving him. Bro, just keep it. My life is worth more than a laptop.